Get ready for the world's greatest Arsenal podcast. Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. My name is Fergus. I am your host. Tonight I am joined by old man Trev, Scunny Mike and Eoin from the Gooner podcast. We're going to look back at the Brighton away game. We're going to just have a general talk about Arsenal stuff, the Gooner Debate, and briefly look ahead to the Palace game, but not really in a huge amount of depth. First, I welcome Trev to the podcast. How are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate.
Still in shorts?
I've recovered. Well, I'm sat in my bedroom and I've been banished to the bedroom tonight because we've got visitors downstairs and we've got a new puppy that's doing me nutting. So I've been banished to the bedroom and I'm quite happy to be up here, actually. I'm doing all right, thank you, Fergus. It took me a couple of days to recover from Brighton. Apart from it's a crappy ground to get to and from, and that completely ruins it. And the weather was the worst I think I've ever remembered at a game. It was a good weekend and I enjoyed it. And I was in a bit of a mess when I got home, but I've recovered now, mate. Ready to go tonight. Look at me bald head.
Did you have more? Did you have more than your 2 pints? Did you stretch it to 2.5?
I may have had 2 pints before midday, 2 pints after midday, 2 pints after half past midday, and I'm not getting myself in any more trouble.
Okay. Also joining us today is Scunny Mike. Scunny, you didn't make it to Brighton, and you were glad. I saw you on Lee Judge's TV doing your fan cam, saying you were glad you didn't go down there and get soaked.
Yeah, I'm full of flu or cold or what it is already now, and I didn't even go to a game like that when it's absolutely slinging it down with rain. So in one respect, yeah, I'm glad I didn't go because of that, but take it as it comes.
Okay, and you just saw a brief glimpse of another Irishman. I thought we need to Irish up this show a little bit more. We brought in Eoin from the Gooner podcast. Eoin, myself, yourself, and Scunny, we put the Yank to bed the other night, and I thought it'd be really good to bring you across here and get you give you your maiden voyage on Guns and Yellow Ribbons. How are you doing?
I'm good, buddy. I hope you can hear me now. Yeah.
It's not the best microphone in the world.
It's okay. I'll sort it out when somebody else is talking. No, look, I don't do a lot of other podcasts, to be perfectly honest. But when you two boys come over and absolutely belittled Mike in front of everybody, I grew a sense of admiration for the both of you. So that's why I've agreed to come on.
That was a bit of classic. Putting the Yanks in the place, wasn't it, Scunny?
I do that a lot with Mike. It's not an uncommon thing from me. If I'm being honest,
guys, we're going to look at the Brighton away game first of all, and as we've alluded to, the conditions down there in Brighton. Trev, talk to me about it. I know you said that. Sorry. Tony Fain is just in the chat and he's come along and said, people with dodgy microphones. Tony, glass houses and everything else, mate. You know what I mean? Trevor, the conditions down there, what were they like? You said to me that in the morning you woke up with the salt water that was on your raincoat that was blown in from the sea. It was that bad.
Mate, it was horrendous. It was. I can't remember there being worse weather at a game, to be honest. There probably has been, but it was that bad. I arrived in Brighton and I was stopping down in Brighton because I couldn't get home after the game, so I put myself an hotel on the seafront, and the wind was that bad in the rain you couldn't actually walk against it, mate. It was horrible. And I was, as I say, I had a room right on the seafront, which wasn't either. But yeah, and then that continued all day, all afternoon, all through the game. It was just howling gale and hammering down with rain. And Terry's just popped up in the chat and he just moaned and moaned and moaned all afternoon. Did me nutting. But it actually wasn't a bad trip because we went to see the Riders of the Night, which, if people don't know, is an Arsenal group. They were playing down in Brighton and we had a right laugh there. Terry bought me a beer, which is unusual.
I actually have a little video clip of yourself and Ben Davis, which I thought I'd share. I haven't, Trev. Ben Bennett, sorry, Ben Bennett. But I saw your face and you got, oh, Jesus, you said to me, do not put that on the podcast. I haven't got it. I won't put it on the podcast. But your face was a picture just for a second.
It was, but going back to the weather, Fergus, it was honestly the worst I've ever seen at football. I can't remember it being worse. It must have been at some stage, standing on a clock end years ago with no cover. It must have been worse. But, I mean, we was about 7 or 8 rows back at Brighton and it was just blowing right up the stand. Horrible. I wouldn't have wanted to play sport in it, to be honest.
And Scully, the lineups. Looking at the lineups, we had Lokonga in for Xhaka. What were your thoughts on bringing Lokonga in for Xhaka?
Well, in all fairness,
we didn't.
No choice, was there really?
Yeah. No. That's a fair comment.
Well, no, with Lokonga, I like Lokonga though. To be honest, I think he's a good player, and he got a lot of stick for Brighton match, and I don't understand why. I thought out of the two, if he was comparing him and Partey in the game, I thought Lokonga looked the better player than what Partey did in the Brighton game. I thought he held the ball up well. I thought he tackled well. I thought he got back well. I thought his passing was a lot better. His shooting, well, then again, I think he only had one shot. Then he realised he skied it and thought, no, I'm not doing that again. But Partey carried on shooting into Rose Ed. So, it's a case of that's how it is.
We'll get into a bit more on Partey and Tomiyasu and stuff and some of the players that did struggle, Aubameyang and so on, as we go along. But I suppose the question was more, and I'll put this to you, Owen, to a certain degree. Lokonga was chosen over the option of maybe Maitland-Niles. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, sound check. Everything's okay now. Is that better?
Yeah,
much better.
Yeah, okay. It's better.
Yeah. Look, I think that whilst Ainsley Maitland-Niles definitely has his qualities and his attributes that are definitely useful throughout the entirety of the season, I really don't see how he has the skill set to operate as a mainstay in midfield for a team like Arsenal. Maybe even let alone in the Premier League at that level. I think that what's slightly disappointing as well is that seemingly by his interviews that come out, Ainsley Maitland-Niles has almost surrendered to the fact that might be his future is in a right back role or a wing back role or as this sort of utility or Phil Neville player that a lot of people wanted him to be, and then strangely Arteta has seemingly put it in his head that now he's just a central midfielder and that's it. In terms of would he have made a difference in the centre of the park, him or El Neni, I don't think they do. I think the problem was systemic rather than any individual. I think that we're being overloaded in the wide areas, and Lokonga and Partey were being sucked out of position, which is it's the most helpless feeling as a footballer when you're seeing one of your teammates being overrun, like say Thomas Partey was seeing Tomiyasu get overrun. It's sort of soul destroying because on one hand, you want to go and help them out. That's the right thing to do. But also you need to cover your own position because the holes that were left in midfield were absolutely massive. So to answer your question, I don't think it would have made a vast difference at all. But I do think that Mikel Arteta could have made a change to put Ainsley Maitland-Niles on, take any of those central midfielders off and move to a back three to try and nullify Brighton's strength of coming down the wings.
Mm. Trevor, we won't go into forget me names, but what did you make of that lineup in the main change being Lokonga in for Xhaka? You were there and you could see more off camera than we could.
Yeah, we missed the Xhaka that played against Tottenham. We missed, but that you've got to remember that the Xhaka that played against Tottenham was much improved on the Xhaka we'd seen previously. So I think he had to bring Lokonga in from my perspective. Lokonga's looked good. In being at the game, I've not watched the game back on the telly yet, so it's interesting listening to the boys. I didn't think that I think the weather was the winner on the day, and I didn't think that any of our boys played badly. I think that Brighton just were a bit stronger than us in that kind of weather, and they looked it. And I honestly think, right, and I'd be really interested to get the views here. And I'm being serious. People might think I'm joking, but I'm not. I think that if Aubameyang would have been firing on all cylinders, like we want him to do, I think that was a definite 1-0 to the Arsenal. One of those breaks we made towards the end would have been converted and would have nicked a 1-0 like good old-fashioned Arsenal. Not played very well, struggle a bit in areas of the field, but hold firm, stay tight, go up the other end and bang a 1-0 in. I honestly thought, standing there in that stand, soaking wet through, freezing cold, I honestly thought last 10 minutes of that game, seriously, we were going to nick a 1-0. I thought we were going to break up the field here and nick a 1-0. I honestly did.
I totally agree, and I jumped on the Gooner podcast. They got the what is it? It's effectively a phone in, Owen. That Mike and yourself, open mic show, which you do after each game, and I jumped on there, and Scunny was on there also, and I said to you two that I was sitting in my local pub. There was I'm going to name drop. Kevin Nolan was in there with us, and he was sitting at my table. And I said to Kevin and a couple of my other mates who were at the table, I said, this is, and I also put on the WhatsApp group, which so it is confirmed that I said this was a smash and grab. It was going to be a 1-0 smash and grab. And it could have gone either way, but I thought Arsenal were going to smash and grab and do it. You touched on Aubameyang. And
tonight. Now I know why I'm in my bedroom tonight. He's going to send me to sleep in a minute. I'm off to bed. That's it. I'm done.
Scunny, we ignore the old man because he's on his Horlicks already ready for bed. Aubameyang, he hit the post with a header and he was unlucky, but that's all he did. We had Aubameyang and the team to a certain degree against Tottenham, which were smashing it all over the park, and Aubameyang looked like he was back. What did you make of his performance overall?
Well, I thought it was a poor performance from Aubameyang. I think he was back to that game that we saw him at what we see at Burnley, and you see these, what we would call, being Arsenal fans, the smaller teams like Brighton and stuff like that. They are hard to break down. Like if you watch the Burnley game, it was a very hard team to break down, and then you go back to this Brighton game. It's another team that's going to be hard to break down. They had everything going for them. They were at home. The weather was absolutely garbage, but I don't blame the weather for our poor performance. I just feel like there was a lot, there's a lot more going on than it was just the weather. But Aubameyang, I just think he's not a great at the minute. I don't know what's going on with him. There's probably he's probably got a lot going on, and I ain't got a clue what they are. But he's not firing on all cylinders. He has been a very poor forward for us. He looks like a square peg in a round hole. It's just not working at the moment for him. But just quickly before you move on, Fergus, about Xhaka, does anyone else think, and here I'm just going to ask a question to you lot, that game that we played against Brighton, was that a Xhaka red card in going? I reckon, me personally, I think that was a red card for Xhaka in that game, because of the way the game was and the way it moved along. But if Xhaka played, I reckon he probably would have got a red card in that game. Does anyone else not think the same?
I think that there should have been a potential red card. I don't know whether that would maybe be too harsh, but one of our fellow countrymen, Fergus Duffy, very, very late in Ramsdale and absolutely no intervention at all. I know that physicality is being brought back into the game visibly. You can see that this year, and I absolutely love it. But a completely dangerous and reckless and needless challenge, and Brighton have been guilty of that in the past, of roughing up goalkeepers and stuff. It seems to be a tactic that they deploy, and I was pretty disappointed not to see that being reviewed, because, as I say, absolutely no intention to play the ball, and a pretty horrible shoulder right to the side of the head. I thought he got off of that one.
Yeah, just go back to the Aubameyang thing. Mike, you can go back and then go to Owen on it. Richard from the Over and Over podcast comes along and says Aubameyang had no service, and without service, he, what can he do? He's gone from 30 goals a season to 12 to 15 goals. Is it the system or is it him? I think it's probably a bit of both, personally. But Scotty, what's your thoughts on that? And then go to you, Owen.
Well, you got to look at Aubameyang as a very one-dimensional striker. If it's not a through ball, for instance, running at pace, he doesn't tend to do a lot with it. The system is probably at fault for a lot of it, yes, because we're not seeing that quick movement going forward in games, because we haven't seen it for a while. You could blame the system, but you could also blame, Aubameyang for really not sort of changing his means of doing things. He must have known when Arteta came in, or even when the system started changing. He needs to change with the times as well. But that's the one-dimensional character that we see from Aubameyang. He's not getting in, he's not getting the balls that he wants, so he just sort of tends to give up. He doesn't really run back. He doesn't really do much. Like when we saw Lacazette coming on in the game, it changed a lot. So, but I'm sure you'll probably get into that later. But you saw the game changed when Lacazette came on.
I just think that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is one of these players that that's the way he plays. That is his average game at the best of times. But the big difference is that sometimes he scores and that's all he'll do in a game, and he'll win you a game, and that's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang at his best. And then other times the chances just don't come and he doesn't do that, and games passing by like the Brighton one seemingly did. The big disappointment for me was that I think Martin Odegaard got a lot of stick once the game had ended, down to his performance. We've seen him subbed off quite early. But I employ everybody to go back and watch the opening 15 minutes of that game, and Martin Odegaard was relentlessly trying to trigger presses against Brighton, and Aubameyang was having none of it. And there's very few things I think that you can control in football, but application, attitude, and work rate are a few things that you can do, and he just didn't do that. And that was the disappointing thing for me, is we've seen what Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang can do when he wants to, and that's the sad thing. It just doesn't seem like he wants to do that at the minute. And I think what that is that in a way, when Arteta first came in, due to the lack of quality players that he had to deploy that three at the back system, quite deep, quite negative, and essentially he was a square peg in a round hole player, and he was outperforming really what he should have been doing. And eventually those goals straight up, and he's a confidence player for me. And I just don't think that type of game suited Aubameyang. And very much like Mesut Ozil, when he doesn't want to do it, he's not going to do it, regardless of what anybody else does. The unfortunate thing is that he's the guy with the captain's armband around his arm, and there's much more expected of a player at Arsenal wearing a captain's armband. So, look, for me, below par performance from Aubameyang, but I think that come the summertime, it's probably emphasised the need for a new striker, because at the minute we've got two strikers that seemingly don't suit the system that the manager wants to play.
So, Trevor, is it Aubameyang, his application? Is it Aubameyang, his desire? Is it Aubameyang, he's got issues? Or is it the system?
Well, Fergus, it sounds like I'm dodging the issue here, but you could fairly make a case for any of those, mate, because we don't know. We're speculating, So you could fairly make a case for any of those reasons. But what I will say is, going back to the game a bit in general, is that the way I watched it, I didn't think that anybody played really badly. I thought it wasn't the best team performance we could have put out there. And Aubameyang has been struggling, so it's highlighted again. I think that talking about the strikers specifically, mate, we're like, I think we're one transfer window behind where I wanted to be. I always said I'd give Arteta till Christmas this year and then start making judgments in my head, right? But I honestly thought that Arteta would have his full team now. And I know he's got lots of players that he's bought, but he hasn't got his strikers yet. I think I'm probably a transfer window behind where I'd like us to be. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad for me, but I do think we need it. Let's not say Aubameyang's playing too badly. Let's just say we need a freshen up. I think we need a freshen up front.
Yeah,
badly,
correct.
A freshen up front. I don't want to see Laka or Alba, really. I want to see some young guns. We saw Balogun earlier in the season. He got a massive chance at Brentford. Didn't do it for me. Didn't look ready yet, Martinelli, when he's played, seen loads in social media this week about Martinelli not getting a chance. But when he has got minutes, he's not looked brilliant. So I think that none of them were really bad. We didn't have the best of performances. Another day we nicked that game 1-0, and we massively need a freshen up front. And that's, me, I won't talk badly about players, Fergus. I won't really go
No.
rightly or wrongly. That's me, But we do need a freshen up front.
Get that 100%. But two questions jump out at there from, well, I can remember one now. The first question was, you came along and said, that you were going to give Arteta till Christmas, but you think you might be one window short. Would you be offended if people say, "Oh, you're just making excuses to extend it because you don't want to go Arteta out"? And I'm not saying that you, but there's elements of. Listen, we talked before. Hang on 1 second. We talked before we came online about elements of social media, elements of the fan base, and so on, who have got various modus operandums and ideas in their head. Would saying I'll stay till the end of the season with Arteta be such a bad thing? And go on, answer.
No, Fergus, I get what you're saying, mate. I get what you're saying, but you know me well, mate, and people that watch this show regularly know me well. You're never going to hear me say Arteta out, because my agenda with the football club is I'm 59 years old. I've supported Arsenal ever since I can remember, and I've never asked for a manager to leave in my life. I take the good with the bad. I want us to win every game. Desperately want us to win every game. As I said before, from the heart, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I'm an Arsenal fan, and I go to watch my club play football. And I'm not going to say Arteta out ever. I'm quite happy to say, I said it before, it does my head in recently. I can't understand some of his selections, but he's manager of my team, so he's got my faith, and he will. I won't say Arteta out ever. I think we are, as I said, all you're going to get out of me, mate, is that I think we are a transfer window behind. I love you too, Princess. We're a transfer window behind where I want you to be. I think instead of it being Christmas, it's probably going to be Christmas and then 2 months after that.
You know what? I think pandemic is a lot to answer for on there, because Arteta was appointed pre-pandemic. Then you've all the monetary issues with pandemic and so on, and restrictions that have been put on people. So you've got a very valid point. I still will stick to the Christmas sort of deadline in my head, only because, not deadline, but like line in the sand of me saying, if we're moving in the right direction. If we're moving in the right direction and I think it needs another 2-3 windows, well, then it needs another 2-3 windows. But I just want to see progress. I want to see what we've seen recently, which is a solid starting 11, which we've seen the last 2 or 3 games. And I want to see, like the signings we saw, and we saw them play at Burnley, we saw them play at Tottenham, the new signings impacting and building that team. Owen, you touched on Odegaard earlier. Arsenal's most one of the standout performers in recent wins over Burnley and Spurs. Bar what you talked about, he was largely anonymous throughout the game.
Yeah, and this is the confusing thing as well, because I think the most disappointing thing for me about this game in particular was that I think whilst it was predictable, it was disappointing, and that's what we've seen against Spurs. We've seen what this squad is capable of. And this is our problem as Arsenal, not only under Mikel Arteta, but seemingly under Arsene Wenger and Unai Emery, is we always have these big results, and then we just don't carry on any momentum from it. And that's not to knock Brighton. I think that we were extremely lucky to escape with any points at all from that fixture, and they were a different class to us on the day. But again, with Martin Odegaard, I think that he was relatively harshly judged for his loan spell. I think he's a phenomenal young player. I think that he's going to be eventually a world-class player. I think he'll be one of the best in the world in that position. I think people forget that when he came in originally, he was coming off the back of not really playing for 6 months. He sustained an injury and was playing with an injury while he was there, trying to settle into a new club halfway through the season under difficult circumstances. So for me, look, this is what I mentioned, and I don't want to dive too deeply into other players as well, but this is something I said on our podcast. With this new crop of players, it's given me a realization of something that I didn't think was that important. I always thought of players as these commodities that were sent out to give you a statistical output and help you try and climb a league. But with Aaron Ramsdale, with Martin Odegaard, with Tommy Asu, Kieran Tierney, Bukayo Saka, name any of them, what they have done is made me realize is that it doesn't just matter about your technical quality. The likability factor has to come in. And Arsenal haven't been a likeable squad for a long, long, long time. We have too many players that aren't relatable, that aren't nice people, to say it politely. But I think players like Aaron Ramsdale, who was belittled before he came into the club and now has seemingly won the entire fan base on side, it's 70% ability for me and 30% likability now, and that's the difference with Martin Odegaard. Because of his work rate in previous games, because of his performances, because of the passion that he plays with, he's given himself that breathing space now to have a game like he did against Brighton and come back and prove everybody wrong again next week. And that's why I think players like Martin Odegaard or Aaron Ramsdale aren't going to get any stick for this result, whereas someone we've mentioned, Granit Xhaka or Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, are players that will get stick because they haven't shown the passion that we like to see as a fan base in their past.
Scunny, Lowski 73 says we can't keep writing off this team for year after year. 5 years of this, maybe next year, eh? I know you have been probably more critical than myself and Trev have of the manager and some of his tactics, whilst always being respectful, etc. Can we keep on? Answer Lowski 73's question.
Well, I'm not a fan of Arteta. I think everyone knows that through previous podcasts that I've done. I've never really been a fan of his. I'm not going to sit there every time I get onto a podcast or sit there every time on Twitter after every game going, Arteta out, Arteta out, Arteta out, this is not good enough. I'm not that type of person. You know, you can't keep doing that every time, you know, we draw a game or lose a game. Sometimes, you know, I'm sorry, Trev, but shit happens.
No, you're right, Mike.
I'm not going to sit there and do that, you know, because what I saw against Brighton, I saw a hard-fought game. I saw a game that we were probably, at one point, we're looking at losing. But we managed to scrape a draw out of it. You know, and after, coming off the back of the North London derby, the way I see the North London derby, as sure as anyone else, you know, all bets are off against Tottenham. All bets are off. It doesn't matter if you're playing well, it doesn't matter if you're playing poorly, all bets are off. It's a completely different kettle of fish to what you would go against Brighton. You know, that's the way I see it. But it's the case, you know, I'm not going to sit here, like I said, I'm not going to sit here every time we draw, we lose, we win. You know, I'm not going to criticise every single time about it because I'm sick of, I got sick of banging that drum last season. You know, I was that Mike, type of person who was going on and on and on. And I said at the start of this season, I think I mentioned it to you as well, Fergus, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to criticise game by game. But if I see a game like we did against Brighton, a hard-fought game, I'm going to say, yes, it was a hard-fought game. We probably would have lost that, you know, but, you know, a few weeks ago, we probably would have lost that game. But we didn't.
That was a question I was going to ask you. The first one was 3-4 weeks ago. Could you see us win this game or losing the game? And I personally think we would have lost this game if this was after, say, if this was the Norwich game and we were away to Brighton. I think we would have lost the game. And the second question was, can you see that we're making any progress in your view with this season in comparison to where you were last season? And I know you said that you went off all social media, you went off WhatsApp, you went off all the groups and everything else just because it was getting you down, and I can understand that. Do you see us winning it, and can you see progress?
I can see some kind of progress. You know, looking at the new signings and everything like that, you know, when we look at Tomiyasu, when you look at Lokonga, Tavares, you know, all these players, and Ramsdale, I was sceptical about a lot of players. You know, I was sceptical about Ramsdale. I was sceptical about Tomiyasu because I'd never even heard of him. I'd never even seen him play in Serie A. You know, so I was sceptical about these players. But you know me. Everyone knows me now. Is I like to be proven wrong with people. You know, Arteta's still yet to prove me wrong. But the likes of Ramsdale, he's proven me wrong every time he plays. I was very sceptical of him. I never criticised him when he first came in, like a lot of people did on social media. I never did that, because I'm not that type of person, and I think you're an absolute arsehole for doing that. You know, and he's proving so many people wrong now, and I'll hold my hands up and say, yes, he is proving me wrong. I was very sceptical of his signing, but he's played game by game, and he's, you know, we're keeping clean sheets. How can you argue with that? You know, I think he's only lost, you know, he didn't keep one clean sheet against Tottenham, that's it. You know, he's only one goal as well, see, there you go. And, you know, with Tomiyasu, although I thought he played very poorly against Brighton, he's looked really good player.
We'll cover that, yeah.
You know, so yeah, I can see some kind of moving forward. I can see that sort, you know, I can see that going forward. But I still feel that we need them type of players that I would say, in the brackets of not far off being world-class players. You know, maybe just underneath being great players. We still need that in the squad.
I think the issue we've got there is while we haven't got European football, it's always going to be hard to attract those. And while we've got some players on astronomical wages on older contracts, that's also going to limit us a little bit. Trev, Brighton dominated the first half and they were quite strong in the second half, but overall they had 21 attempts to put the ball past Aaron Ramsdale, but only challenged him really twice, and one was a wonder save, which we'll talk about as well. How did you see the game there? Were you ever worried that we were going to lose the game? Did you always, like, when we look at it, and Scunny was on the one after the Brighton game, and Scunny had said that he was never worried about us losing. Did you feel the same with the Brighton game?
You see, look, you boys know I'm an idiot. I think we're going to win every game, right? I'm that kind of fan. But that's how it is. I thought that Brighton would possibly score, but then I didn't think we'd lose the game, right? And that's how I am. But Owen and Mike both make really fair and good points. And I don't mind criticism of my football club when it's done the way that Mike done it then. I don't mind that. And Owen's exactly right. You know, with Odegaard, not every player is going to play really well every game. And we'll see how Odegaard comes back next game and plays football, you know. You can't expect... I'm thinking the same with Tomiyasu. I didn't think he was brilliant, but it's his fourth game for the club. Come on, you know. As for changes, have we improved under Arteta? I'm 100% confident when I say, of course we have. We've got a completely different back five to what played against Manchester City. And that was only 4 weeks ago. He's getting his players fit, you know. And we... That game against Brighton, as you said, Fergus, rightly said, we lose that. And in my head, not a shadow of doubt do we lose that game at the start of the season. If it comes at the start in the first 3 or 4 games of the season, we get beat at Brighton. But it was different, you know. You pick out Ramsdale, so I'll have me 30 seconds worth of Ramsdale, right? It's not just about his goalkeeping, Ramsdale, right? It's, as Owen said, it's about he's enjoying playing for the Arsenal. You can see he wants to be out there playing for our football club. He wants to.
He wants to interact with us too, as well, Trev.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and that is why the support has been so much better this season. Because as Owen says, as a supporter there, you want to lift them players because they're lifting you. You want to lift those players, you know. So we've undoubtedly seen improvements. We're not a final thing. Will Arsenal stay patient with Arteta? I honestly hope they do. But you see, Mike's been different in that. I've watched some of these people on social media, Fergus, and I honestly have to laugh. I have to laugh because when we beat Tottenham, some people actually said, "Oh, Arteta's there now. He's done it. He's turned us around. We're on our way." And then put a but on the end. But if we lose next week against Brighton, I want him out. Come on. It's bloody football. We win, lose, we draw. We win, we lose, we draw. If we won every game we played in, we'd have won the league for the last 100 and odd years, wouldn't we? It's football. Think about what you're saying when you say these things. Think about what you're saying and give yourself a look and say, why am I saying if we beat Tottenham, Arteta's a hero, but if we lose to Brighton, I want him sacked again? I can't work it out.
Listen. You know what? I've turned 50 this year, but I find myself saying so much stuff, and I sound like I am a granddad, but I sound like an old granddad. I sound like my dad, like old people, and I just come along and say, "Oh well, it's the young generation," and. It is a modern generation of fans that they want everything, instant gratification of absolutely everything. And I didn't go to the football when you went in the 80s because I didn't even live in the country. But we were dreadful under Terry Neal and the time, as we know from talking about the Arsenal history over the summer. Owen, looking at a couple of other players that struggled, and listen. It sounds like I'm being a bit negative, but I just trying to dig out because overall I think the point was a good result. But Partey and Tomiyasu. Tomiyasu struggled. I think he struggled because he came up against a very, very strong opponent on that left-hand side, who gave him a really good game, but he still kept him in control. So, and as Trev pointed out, it's only 4 games in. He's finding his feet. The Premier League is going to be huge. And the last game he played in was the Northumberland Derby. But him and Partey did come up into some criticism of their performances. What did you make of theirs?
Yeah, well, look, I think the disappointing thing again was that when we signed Thomas Partey, we thought we were getting this Rolls Royce of a midfielder that could do it all, and it really, since his inclusion this season, he started to show that. Against Spurs, he looked like different quality to any other player on that pitch in terms of his ability on the ball and to cover ground defensively too. So, and then you go to Tomiyasu. I think Trev covered it quite well there, is that it's funny when I look back, okay, we all talk about the Invincibles, all right, and stuff, and I might be young, like way younger, like a lot younger than used to, like a lot, but
this show.
They are ancient, I'll give it that.
They are, yeah. I heard Fergus was trying to deflect the fact that he's older miserably, but anyway, when we talk about the Invincibles and stuff, looking back, even back then when I was a bit of a nipper, Freddie Youngberg had a bad game, Robert Perez had a bad game, Thierry Henry had poor games, Vieira, Gilberto, they all had bad games. They weren't these gods that never had a bad performance. And Tomiyasu has showed against Burnley, which apparently is now, according to football Twitter, which is the nicest place in the world, the be all and end all of the physical test of the Premier League. He's done it against Spurs as well, who up to a few weeks ago were quite good in the wide areas as well. Against Heung-min Son, kept him relatively quiet. Heung-min Son got his goal when he moved away from Tomiyasu. So to see him have a bad game, I think, again, I'll go back to the point of him and Partey, because they were both playing on that same side. It was a systemic issue. There was an overload always happening. Cucurella, I think is the left-back's name, was absolutely outstanding. He played flawlessly, I thought. But again, no help whatsoever. And I'm not sure whether that's down to his winger, whether it's down to Thomas Partey, or whether it's down to Tomiyasu himself. There's another observation I had as well, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Kieran Tierney seemingly has a lot more emphasis on him to get forward this season. He's almost being played as an out-and-out winger now, and I think Kieran Tierney does his best work coming from deep, a 1-2 ball, and then using his work rate and his pace to get past the player and create an overlap down that side. But his starting position is extremely high, which means Gabriel has to shift over, Ben White has to shift over, and Tomiyasu has to stay deep. And I think the fact that Ben White was very far away from him for the majority of the game was sort of limiting what Tomiyasu could do, except just show Cucurella down the line. So I think systemically, Mikel Arteta failed Tomiyasu. He didn't do anything to rectify it throughout the match, which was a little disappointing. But there were still aspects of his games that he was relatively sloppy in. So, but look, one game. This guy has come in probably not expecting to start as much as he has been. So I think we'll have to take it easy on the guy and give him a chance. It's only a few games in.
I agree with that. Can I just point out as well, just quick on Tomiyasu? He's come from Bologna. He's only a young lad. Has he ever even seen rain like that, what was in Brighton? Has he even played in that type of weather?
Exactly.
And if he's going to have a bad game, that was probably going to be it. And it wasn't even that bad of a game. We still kept a clean sheet. So, he's only a young lad, and he's just come to England. He's come from Italy. He's probably never even seen rain like it. Let's just give him a bit of a break on there.
Trev, towards the end of the game, Smith Rowe and Saka paired up quite well. Unfortunately, not well enough. Smith Rowe probably didn't make the right decision. He didn't bury it. And if he wasn't going to bury it, he should have squared it to Saka. And we could have nicked the game, as we all thought it was going to be just a smash and grab. How did you feel Saka and Smith Rowe played? Did you see? I didn't think either looked too tired. because people talk about them getting overplayed, etc. Go on. What was your thought of that play and their performance?
I thought they were fine. As I said earlier, I thought they were absolutely fine, Fergus. And what we've also got to remember is, I don't know where Brighton have found them, but Brighton are a massively tall side. I mean, we've found some defenders this season that I bet the average height of our defender this season has probably gone up by about 3 inches a player. And Brighton have come back. What's his name? That Burn, I think it was their number 3 or 33. That Burn, he looked about 7 foot tall. At one point, Odegaard was marking him, and he could have sucked his nipple. He was that short. You know what I mean? He was that short.
He might have, but that was probably taken off camera.
You what, mate? Yeah, all right, yeah.
He might have, but that was yeah.
It's look. I'm going to generalise again. Nobody played really, really bad. People had off days. I'm actually looking forward to 2 home games now. Not 2 home games in a week because Sky have buried us. Bang out of order. But I'm actually looking forward to 2 home games back at the Emirates with that same team. I don't think he should make a single change, right? And see how we go then. I'm excited about getting back to the Emirates because it wasn't as bad. Everybody's making good points about Brighton. Everybody's making good points, picking bits out. You know, Lokonga, Partey, Tomiyasu, Alba. And they're all valid points because it all actually happened. I can't argue any of them points. But as I said just now, if I generalise it all, I thought we were unlucky not to nick a typical Arsenal 1-0 at the end because we had 2 or 3 we had 2 chances at the end. Could have nicked a 1-0.
Totally agree. And I think Brighton were also wasteful in what they'd done. They had more opportunities, but we did look threatening when we got those slight things. The thing that stood out for me, with the exception of Tottenham, who end up finishing below us by us beating them, it's the first club that's above us in the league this season that we've actually gained a point against. We've dropped points against Chelsea, Man City, and now Brentford are ahead of it. You know, so you can pick positives out of it there the whole way along. Owen, were we tactically outmaneuvered by Graham Potter?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've reiterated that a few times already. And I think that a big thing as well to remember is that Graham Potter, I remember he was being talked about as a potential replacement if Mikel Arteta was to be moved on. And people laughed at the fact. And the truth is he's overperformed at almost every job he's had. And not only that, if you look at that Brighton squad as a collective, they're players that he has had a hold of for a substantially long period now. And now you're starting to see the fruits of his labour, the implementation. Their pressing was absolutely phenomenal. We didn't know how to deal with it. And I think that was done purposely. But if you look back at Brentford game, I think he probably took that as a blueprint at how to beat Arsenal. You know, they were doubling up on Ben White all the time. You know, who knows Ben White better than Brighton and Graham Potter? They knew that he was the outlet. I think that during the Tottenham game, Aaron Ramsdale passed to Ben White the most. He was the player that Aaron Ramsdale gave the ball to directly most from goal kicks. I think he did it twice in this game. So it just shows how much emphasis they put on eliminating his ability to pass the ball out from the back and break our press. So I think that is somewhere that I'm with Trev. Look, I think that there's this old saying, and I really don't like it, of a flip flop. People say, I view changes with the landscape that we're in, and for me, at the start of the season when them results were coming in.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, I think we lost him. Trev, while Owen jumps back in again, both teams had penalty claims. That one was Smith Rowe was adjudged to have fallen over too easily, and the other one was under a challenge from Duffy, and Gabriel evaded punishment, even though from our recall on VAR, looking at the VAR, I was surprised that one wasn't given. What were your thoughts? Well, actually, probably you're the wrong one. From live,
It was
Yeah. Because you haven't watched it back on TV, Mike.
It's live, you see it, and I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Mike, what was your thoughts on those two penalty calls?
Nah, it's just tit for tat, innit? None of them was really penalties. Like Owen said a bit earlier on, the only one that I thought was the worst one was the challenge on Aaron Ramsdale. I thought that should have been looked at a lot more thoroughly rather than any of the penalty shouts.
Yeah,
that'd be my take on it. Like Heath has just said in the comments there, 50-50. He could have gone either way, I suppose, but it was more tit for tat. I just think it was just, one of them games, isn't it? you either get him or
Trev,
you don't.
Trev, just to finish up on this game, the Ramsdale save. Some name drop again. I was talking about keepers with Kevin Nolan, and yeah, I know. But no, the reason I came along, we're talking about Leno, and we're talking about how Fabianski played for Arsenal, and he wasn't highly thought of at Arsenal. He's doing so well at West Ham. He'd done well at Sunderland. He'd done well at Swansea, I think, as well. He's done well in a few different clubs. And I said, how do you rate Ramsdale? And he just come along and said, he makes basic saves look like Hollywood saves. But that save wasn't a basic save made look like a Hollywood save. That was a keeper that was caught in the wrong area of the goal, that was able to flip and just get his hands to it. That was a clear goal that Maupay was gonna score. Trev?
Yeah, the Arsenal fans, we were down the other end to that, Fergus. But even from being like 100 and odd yards away, you could see that it was a good save. You could see that it was a cracking save. And we I don't know. I don't know how to comment about our previous. I can't comment about our previous goalkeepers. But what I will say is now we've got a goalkeeper now that I feel confident he's going to make them saves. And not only is he going to make them saves, he's going to make fewer mistakes, fingers crossed, than we've seen our previous goalkeepers make. Because you can talk about Fabianski. He's played well at Swansea. He's played well at West Ham. But he made loads of mistakes at Arsenal. I had zero confidence in the man. I had zero confidence in him. So we had to get rid of him. And if he's doing well somewhere else, good luck to him. Good luck to him. But I wouldn't want him back. I wouldn't swap Ramsdale for anyone now in the league. Anyone. I just want to see him develop at Arsenal. And what you got to remember is develop's a really important word at the moment. Because what's the average age of our back five? About 22, 23? Yeah.
The squad is at an average age of 23.
There you go. Be excited. Be expecting to lose some games or draw some games. But look at our average age and look at what we can do when we turn it on. Be excited. Have you seen? I think that, to me, it looks like Smith Rowe in particular, but Smith Rowe and Saka's confidence in their ability seems to have grown this season. They just seem to be more confident in doing the bits they do. And once again, they'll both have off games. They've both had off games. And we can question that, but we're developing side and we're developing nicely. I know that, this is me talking and people think, he's never negative. But I am if I need to be. But we're developing side and we're doing all right. 23 years old, Jesus.
We're getting comments like, Trev, you've been Josh Kroenke, Trev Conkey. Listen, you're just saying it as it is. We are. I do think we're a work in progress. I would like to see us get European football by the end of the season. If all the clouds and stars and unicorns that Saka's got align, we could really be lucky and get top four. We might win something trophy wise along the season. We've got one issue that we need to look at, and Mike, I'll go to you first and then go to Owen. Arsenal have scored just 5 goals in their opening 7 league games, the fewest at this stage of the season since 86-87, and I think the majority of those goals, correct me if I'm wrong, are from set plays. I think we've only had 1 goal in open play. I might be wrong on that stat, but nonetheless, 5 goals in 7 games. Mike, thoughts? What do we need to do?
Well, this is where it comes down to tactics, like we were just saying earlier. Under Arteta, yes, we're conceding less goals, but we're not even scoring. So I think that is a massive issue. But I also think maybe having that striker, the right striker in the right position, I think that would probably help us in the long run. But that's something, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait for. So, but who knows? That could it's one of them things that could change it, might not change it. But I do think it does come down to tactics. I've been very critical in that sense of we don't push the ball forward quick enough. I feel like a lot of the youngsters don't tend to take the risks that we really need to push forward. They are very hesitant. There is a couple of hesitants in there. The likes of Partey is one of them as well, and Martin Odegaard has been very, he's not really taking them risks, as well as Saka and ESR. Sometimes they do take the risks and it pays off, but sometimes when they don't tend to take them risks, it sort of goes backwards. The ball starts coming back onto us.
I think Odegaard has been, especially in the Tottenham game and probably the Burnley game, he was the fulcrum of our press. I think he's been played a little bit.
There's a couple of times in the Burnley game when I was stood there, in the stands watching it. Sometimes you just feel like you do see players like Aubameyang, Saka, and Pepe make the runs, and they don't tend to make that the turn and maybe think, oh no, maybe is it right? Is it not right? Is it right? And then they just send either send it sideways or backwards. Even though the space is there for him to get it forward. So I don't know if that's a tactical thing or a decision-making thing. I'm not too sure, but I think we do need to work on that. So that's just one of the things that I've seen personally that I feel like we need to go.
I get you, and you see the dreaded horseshoe come out. The horseshoe of gloom, where the ball goes backwards, sideways, forwards, backwards, sideways, forwards. Owen, your thoughts on where the goals are going to come from? Would you change team selection? How would you change lineups and tactics? And it's over to you.
No, look, I think the key to success is consistency. And I think that's what we're lacking. And I think now we're starting to see the benefits of consistency with that backline. That's what you get when people start to play on a regular basis together. And I think what we have in that midfield behind our striker, whoever that may be, in Bukayo Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe and Martin Odegaard, is there's a lot of creativity, a lot of expression. I just think they need to be given the freedom. I think that Mikel Arteta is a stickler for ball retention. I think he puts too much emphasis on retaining the ball and he isn't risky enough in letting people sort of go out and express themselves. So for me, I think as well, one of the things that I get frustrated with is that when you look at Spurs, and I'm sorry to keep jumping back to the Spurs match, but it was just because that was the ideal way that we want to see Arsenal play. We played in these small patterns of quick 1-2 touch football, nice pattern triangles that look relatively choreographed, players running into space, no one ever standing still. Just everything you want from a performance. But then we see maybe going back to the old school, knock it down the line and try and cross it into a single man in the box for a header. And for me, if we had went out to Brighton and lost, trying to play those patterns, triangles, I don't mind failing when people are trying to do the right thing. So for me, there needs to be a nailed down system, and we need to stick with it and try to implement it as much as possible, because like I said, consistency breeds success, and until you start to get consistent, players don't know what they have to do. Are we going through Martin Odegaard and Saka, or is Kieran Tierney going to spam in crosses for 90 minutes like a 5-year-old playing FIFA? That's where my issue lies. There needs to be a plan. The players need to know their plan, and then Mikel Arteta needs to stick to that plan.
Okay. Trev, can you grab this a second? My wife's just called me, so can you and Owen talk for a second, and I'll jump back in.
All right. Yeah. Okay. There's some points the boys make there, and some points I've not, because I'm in a different room. I've not got my pen and paper with me jotting this down. Comparing me to Josh Kroenke, you buggers. That's I know I use the words, but I was at the Kroenke out campaign, and not because of the money he was spending, but much like we spoke about the players earlier. We've got players now that lift the fans. I want an owner that lifts the fans, that cares, and that's where Josh Kroenke annoys me. I want to see an owner that's at the club and lifts us fans and makes us excited about. I know I use that word excited, but I wasn't using it as the Josh Kroenke expressionism, right? And I forgot what I was going to talk about now. Yeah, you see,
I told you we're getting old, and you laughed at me.
See, Fergus said that 87 we've not was when we last scored so few goals at the start of the season. Well, we won a good final that season. We won a League Cup final that season against Liverpool. It was a cracking game of football. But the following
it wasn't too bad a couple of years after either.
Yeah, that's right. But that's the point. I mean, you're exactly spot on, my friend. You are spot on, because the following season in '88 was probably my worst ever trip to Wembley. We got beaten by Luton in the League Cup final, and it was embarrassingly bad. But then, what happened in '89? I mean, you knew where I was heading, mate. You knew where I was heading. You never know what's around the corner. I'm not saying we're going to be knocking doors down in a season's time, but you don't know what's around the corner, So, we've not scored that many goals. We're short of a striker, we said, but we could well go on and win something.
Trev, our next game, as you say, is after the international break. We've got two effectively midweek games, because we've got they're not midweek, but it's a Monday and a Friday. So we've got 2 weekday games, 8 o'clock kickoffs. Should Newcastle beat Tottenham on the Sunday before our game against Palace, pre the game, and the fans gather in the concourse and have a few beers and get the 2-for-1s and everything else, hopefully there's a good atmosphere. But should they have another rendition of Tottenham get battered everywhere they go, or should that only be reserved for a Tottenham game? But if they got beaten against Newcastle, surely we should be singing that again.
Oh, I'm not so sure, mate. I'm sick of hearing the word Tottenham. Sick of hearing it among our fans.
But if they got done 3-0, what do you reckon?
Person shouts in my ear, what do you think of Tottenham? I'm honestly going to lose what little bit of my hair I've got left, mate. It drives me to distraction. Sing about
I'm with Trev on this one. I always think that song should be saved for a Tottenham game.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be sung in the stands at Burnley or Brighton.
But the song, its birth of the song was West Ham fans watching it, watching Tottenham on an early kickoff getting battered, and they were looking at the screen. You could see it on social media. So should it not be brought back again?
Look, so hang on a minute. We got Palace next, right, on a Monday night. Don't start me off about that, right? We go 3-0 up against Palace, right? Fingers crossed. What are we going to sing? Tottenham get battered everywhere they go? Or are we going to sing Palace?
No. I said pre-game in the concourse if the results go the right way, Trev. Throughout the game itself, I don't want to hear stand up, you hate Tottenham, what do you think of Tottenham? I don't engage in those. They should only be kept for North London derby days, and when you're very drunk celebrating an FA Cup final or a league win or a Champions League win. Oh, wouldn't that be lovely? But yeah, Owen, what's your thoughts on the upcoming Palace game? It's a long way off. You don't know who could get injured in the stupid, ridiculous international window, because Ireland have got no chance of qualifying for nothing. That's the only reason I say that.
No, that's it. I love international breaks because I'm completely free, because there's no point in paying attention to Ireland whatsoever. But look, I think
don't feed these two. Don't feed them.
Well, no, but it's even better because they're English. They thought they were going to win something, and nobody else did.
We got further than Ireland ever did.
It doesn't matter.
We're forgetting something about this game as well, is that it's the big Paddy Vieira derby.
Correct.
So that adds a bit of space to it. But look, it's sort of a bit hot and cold with Palace at the minute. I'm not sure what to expect. But on a more personal note, I'm absolutely shitting it going into that week, because I'm actually going over for my first game it's actually funny because the last game I was at pre-pandemic was the Villa game where we come back 3-2 under Unai Emery when we went down to 10 men. Maitland-Niles was sent off, and my first game back is going to be the Villa fixture on the Friday, and I'm obviously going to meet a few of you boys and along with a rake of other people. So make
sure you Trevor buys first, otherwise you're screwed.
That's it. I clocked onto that well early. I know the type of no. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, so I'm more nervous about the fact of what shape we're going to be in by the time we get to the game. But look, for me, the way I describe, as I said, I was saying earlier, my position of Mikel Arteta was that we probably should have moved on to him. Now, given the fact that he got 10 points out of 12 available in the last 4 games, I think that the way I described it was a stay of execution until Christmas. So I wouldn't say I'm back on the trust the process train, but I'm willing to give him a chance now that he's got his players. But I would like to see some more positive football, the type that we've seen against Tottenham. We don't need a big monumentous occasion to go out and express ourselves playing decent football, and that's what I want to see against Palace because they're there to be got at.
Yeah, I agree, and like some people have commented about the Vieira homecoming, and we talk about songs that be sung. I think Vieira he will get a good welcome by the Arsenal faithful. Mike, what's your thoughts on the Palace game, and obviously we got the Villa not long after that either.
Yeah, well, I was thinking maybe that could be one of my first home games this season, but the way it's looking, it's a case of now with the times and everything else of, the Palace and Villa games, the late kick-offs and everything else, and the games in between, it's just going to cost more than what it's worth. Because it's getting the train down there for me and everything else. So it's not worked out well for me, that one. So I'm not happy about that.
You do know that bookings.com, Guns and Yellow Ribbons bookings.com is always available.
Yeah, I figured that was probably coming, but you know me, I don't like to ask.
You do what you need to do, yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of them ones where you think, oh, for God's sake, it's probably one of those ones I probably could have got to, and then it's like, Sky, screw it all up for you. But that's the way it is. And as for the international breaks, just before I go on to the Palace game, I just think, I hate international breaks. It winds me up. Just play football. I want to see the league. I don't want to see internationals. I'm not bothered. Yeah, every 2 years, I want to see an international break, and that's for the Euros and for the World Cup. I don't want to see any in the league, during the season. Don't need to. But yeah, Palace. Owen, it's the nail on the head. With Vieira's homecoming and everything else. So yeah, I hope he does get a good reception because he deserves it out of anyone. So I hope the fans do give him a good reception, but not make it easy for him either.
Yeah, agreed. Trev, final word, because that's what you like.
Vieira deserve. Is he frozen? Oh, Fergus is frozen. Look at him. No, he ain't.
No, I haven't frozen. It's your internet.
Vieira will hopefully get a massive welcome because he's probably the best midfielder I've ever seen play at Arsenal in the manner he played. He was a player that probably got sent off twice a season, but you totally accepted that because every sending off was worth it. So he's going to get a massive welcome, and then his team's going to get beaten good, I think. I'm looking forward to. I can't talk about the game specifically because I think Sky have gone over the top, Fergus. I know Sky got to move games. I know they've paid a lot of money for the privilege. But moving Arsenal playing on Monday and then again on a Friday, it does make you start thinking: is there an agenda against the Arsenal in some way? I know that. And
then 12:30 on a Saturday the following week.
Yeah. And then we've got Man United coming up, and we've got Norwich on a Sunday at 12:30 at home, or is it 4:30 at home? One of the two. It's just, I'm upset about it because, I have a long journey as well. Trevi comes 10 minutes. What's he talking about?
You waffle on at the end as always, getting your
attention. Yeah. No, I've got nothing to talk about tonight, really. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm
Your journey's long. It's not as long as mine, Trev. Don't worry about it. But it actually suits me lovely because myself and Mike Feinberg, my co-host of the Gunners podcast, on the Sunday we're actually going undercover as like a really crappy knockoff. Remember the movie Green Street where Frodo Baggins becomes a football hooligan? That's what we're doing. We're going undercover as West Ham fans to watch Spurs get battered. So we're taking the opportunity, and if they do get hammered, we'll revel in the opportunity to sing that song at West Ham.
That'd be great.
Owen, what we got you on there? Say your farewells, but also let people know where they can find you. Hopefully, you'll be on here a little bit more often if you've enjoyed it tonight. Then we'll move on to Mike and Trev, and we'll bid farewell to everyone for tonight.
No, absolutely. Cheers for having me on. I apologise for my mic breaking, and then my internet has been a little bit dodgy this evening, which is uncharacteristic. But no, brilliant to be on. You can find me on Twitter at Owen Young AFC. You can see that dodgy spell in there, or if you want, you can make it easier for yourself and look us up at the Gooners podcast. At the minute, we're obviously coming towards the end of our Gooners Free Cancer campaign, so head over there, check out the prizes available in the raffle. Some absolutely insane prizes there, so head over, check it out, and look forward to get back on. Thanks for having me.
You're definitely the yin to the yang of Feinberg, aren't you?
Until alcohol gets involved, and we're just working out because we're actually staying in the North Bank of Highbury in the apartments while we're there, and the discussions and negotiations are ongoing as to whether we're going to lie beside each other like a Twix or whether we're going to go top and tail. So it's any suggestions in the chat would be muchly appreciated.
We shall meet.
I'm going to go top and tail.
Man, you haven't seen his feet. He's
No, I haven't. I've only seen this sort of.
I don't want to know because you know what they say about big
enough,
feet.
Yeah, that's enough for me. Just this sort of square that you get.
It isn't the size of the feet, Fergus. It's the fungi and growths that concern me.
Don't do it.
Okay, here we go. Listen, we will.
Terry Greenwood that keeps cropping up on here, Owen. Right, we travelled to all the European aways together. We go to all the games, and I had to share a room with him once. Right, Owen, I'm scarred, still scarred now, scarred for life. And I honestly,
you meant to share a room, not spoon.
I'll never share a room ever in my life. Even when my son comes now, my son, who I love dearly, he comes to watch the Arsenal. When we stay over somewhere, I make him get a separate room. I'll never share it. The wife, share it with her.
The last thing I'll say before I go is that you're like myself. You've got tattoos. You have your arms crossed. You seem like a big dude, but to me, you scream a secret baby spoon. You're a little spoon for me.
It didn't take long. It only took an hour and 7 minutes for Owen to get back into Gooner podcast mode. Listen, guys, thanks very much. Scunny, as always, are you doing the Arse Bros, or are you just doing the...
I'll do Arse Bros every now and again. I'm what they call a free agent now, so you'll probably see me popping up all over the place
you're on Lee Judge's fan cams, you pop up on Gooner podcast and here, so yeah. Are you the new Dan Potts?
No, I'm not that popular.
Hilsey, every little helps. Say your farewells.
Listen, we just got to confirm what Owen just said. Although he's obviously turning out to be a bit of a knob, it's he's this. Have a look at this. Have a look at this Gooners V Cancer raffle. The boys done ever so well. They have ever so well. Go over there and have a look at what they've got on offer. It's some really good stuff there. And I forgot. I was going to say something else. Oh, yeah, you can find me, right, on Guns and Yellow Ribbons only, right? Because I'm not bothered, really. I'm an Arsenal fan. Everyone else...
We get invited anywhere else, that's what it is.
We didn't touch on the conversation we had beforehand, but listen, people on social media should get their facts correct before they start castigating people and calling people... misogynistic, racist and everything else just because they support a football team or sing a song that has nothing to do with race, creed or religion. I'll leave it there. I'll stop with that. Guys, you're
lowering yourself to their level, son. Don't go there. just press that block button, son. We know who we are. We know what we are. You know, we're decent Arsenal fans, and that is it. Don't go there, mate. Don't stoop. Don't stoop.
Last thing to say is we will meet up for a beer, Owen. Gooner, Hilsey, and Trev, and me. Are you Scunny? You're not down for the Villa game, but the Villa game is the one we're out for. So
I'm going to Leicester though, so I think I'll see you there.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah,
mate.
I'll see you at Leicester.
Yeah, and I
although I'm driving,
I think you're going at you as well, Owen.
We'll take you out the hand of Henri.
What's that?
You know exactly.
Hand of frog.
Get in there, Terry Henry.
You have been watching an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Thank you, everybody. Go away, Trev.
You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons and Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too.